Hey all, Health Guru here. Let's talk about the 7 deadly sins you should avoid.
Wow, that sounds serious.
I'm here today with my brother Max. Say hello to everybody, Max.
Hi, everybody.
You know, people have always been immoral, shiftless, and self-gratifying, and for ages mankind has struggled to find a conceptual system to operate their spiritual shortcomings. The 7 deadly sins are those transgressions which are fatal to your spiritual progress.
So, what are the 7 deadly sins? And how can we avoid them?
They are pride, envy, gluttony, lust, wrath, greed, and sloth. Let's review them one by one. The first is pride. Healthy pride is about self-confidence, reflecting a motivating, can-do attitude. Those with such pride find their achievements richly satisfying and truly believe that nothing succeeds like success. The pleasure afforded them through achieving things or simply handling them effectively makes them eager to follow up on individual accomplishments. Those with unhealthy pride, however, may be equally motivated to succeed, but the dynamics governing their motivation are different. They're inordinately driven to succeed, and repeatedly, because they can't really internalize individual triumphs. If they're to hold onto their ultimately weak self-confidence, they must constantly prove themselves, and not only to themselves, but to others as well. The reason for their constant struggles is that deep down, the self-doubt or feelings of shame that plagued most of them while growing up still, though below the surface of awareness, continue to disturb them. To compensate for their brand of confidence, they likely come across as cocky. And that's a pronounced reaction to what psychoanalysts allude to as narcissistic injury. Beneath all their professions of superiority is an insecurity that makes it virtually impossible for them to admit when they're wrong or say they're sorry. And all too easy for them to feel attacked by others.
So, how do you overcome unhealthy pride?
Humility overcomes unhealthy pride. The universe humbles the proud and exalts the humble. Everything we have is from the universe, and everything we do is derived from the gifts it has given us. By being modest, we can turn outwards and lift up those around us. Then there's envy. Envy is almost inevitable in cultures that are driven by consumerism, where the goal of the game is to be the one who ends up with the most toys. Celebrities and other consumers constantly remind us of all the things we could have. Envy starts at an early age, when we are exposed to all those television commercials. We grow up wondering, why can't I have what they have? And we find ourselves chanting, I want, I want, I want. Even usually kind people turn into predators, coveting their neighbors' things. Soon envy's old cronies, anger and resentment, show up as well. When we are caught up in envy, we are prisoners of someone else. We are letting what they do and what they have determine how we feel about our lives. The fuel that feeds envy is comparisons. Whenever you find yourself unfavorably comparing yourself to others, remember, everyone is unique. An effective antidote to envy is the spiritual practice of gratitude. It's hard to get into the comparison game when we are truly thankful for all the bounties the universe has bestowed upon us. Whenever you find yourself falling into the trap of coveting the possessions, power, wealth, beauty, or fame of another, make a list of all the gifts you have been given. Counting your blessings help you to keep envy away.
And what about kindness? Does it help to overcome envy?
Yes, kindness overcomes envy. Our love for someone should be without bias or spite. Envy will cause a rift in your relationship with the universe and with others. Look upon your life with positivity rather than counting the ways the universe hasn't blessed you. And then there's gluttony. Gluttony is defined as the overindulgence or lack of self-restraint in food, drink, or wealth items, especially as status tokens. The English word comes from Latin, meaning to gulp. Gluttony worships food to feed our self-love. Webster defines gluttony as habitual greed or excess in eating, greedy or excessive indulgence. While gluttony may seem to be a more trivial transgression than the other deadly sins, there is a reason this sin makes the list. With the alarming rate of modern obesity we see today, perhaps many have forgotten or forsaken the warnings against gluttony and its deadly consequences. The implication here is that if we give ourselves to being satisfied with spiritual food, then physical hunger will lose its supreme power. A lot of gluttony is born from boredom. Life is not satisfying or stimulating. Relationships feel empty and work is boring, but the food is always there and tastes so good. So we need to cultivate a range of appetites for great and good things. Things like good literature, friendship, reading, nature, work, and etc. Discovering these other appetites so that things other than food can satisfy us.
And are there other ways to overcome gluttony?
Yes, temperance overcomes gluttony. Gluttony wants us to give into our self-gratification for eating and drinking, among other things. Temperance is our ability to control ourselves and these desires. We may fall into a trap of self-indulgence, but during these times, we can call upon the virtue of moderation. And then there's lust. Lust is one of the 6 passions of the mind, the others being anger, attachment, pride, greed, and envy. These are inherited over time. Lust is one of the most basic desires and perhaps the last to vanish in our quest for self-realization. Since the nature of a living being is to reproduce or multiply, it is automatically connected to lust. It manifests in a much stronger way in the form of a pleasure-seeking animal. When this desire is not met, anger manifests and many times result in violence as well. We can see that in several cases in the current environment. The lust factor is a long and tough struggle. We can see this in several examples of holy men who, after seemingly giving up all materialistic pleasures or desires, fall for this one strong, latent desire.
But isn't a lustful desire the same as a sexual desire?
You see, lust is not just a sexual desire. It's sexual desire that has turned itself inside out, distorting what's natural and making it self-serving. Lust is an entirely selfish sin. It's self-absorbing and destructive against yourself and the other person. When you're absorbed with lust, you'll have very little regard for the consequences. That's the nature of fire. It consumes and burns everything in its path, and then it moves on, looking for more fuel. By definition, lust is a passionate desire for something. It's typically intense, unrestrained, and often uncontrollable. It's sneaky and goes way beyond our usual associations with sex. But it is that and more. You can't escape the reality of this sin unless you become a hermit in a cave, far from the reaches of society, but probably not even then. Some people lust after material things. Others may have a lust for power, fame, knowledge, drugs, or alcohol. Whatever the case, lust is powerful, and just like most sin, it's cunning, enticing, and catastrophic. To be clear, the desire for sexual relations itself is not sinful. Without it, you wouldn't even be here. But when sexual desire turns inward, it becomes lust, and it's a sin of the flesh.
Wow. So what overcomes lust?
Chastity. Chastity overcomes the sin of lust. Everyone could use more chastity in a world that's constantly displaying sexual images. The virtue of chastity can help calm our lustful desire for sexual acts and restrain our wandering eyes. And then there's wrath. Wrath can be summarized as strong, vengeful hatred or resentment. The warnings of wrath arise from the consequences of vengeance in human relations. We can become consumed by rage and revenge to the point of acting irrationally and immorally. This is the wickedness of wrath and why it is included as a deadly sin. A medieval scholar declared that anger is the name of a passion. A passion of the sensitive appetite is good insofar as it is regulated by reason, whereas it is evil if it set the order of reason aside.
But what's the difference between anger and wrath?
The main difference between wrath and anger is that anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility, while wrath is an extreme form of anger. Now, anger is a strong, usually hostile emotion you have when you think of someone who has behaved in an unfair, cruel, or unacceptable way with you. It is an emotional reaction common to all living beings. Anger is usually triggered by emotional hurt. It's a reaction to threat, pain, criticism, or perceived provocation. It can also be a secondary response to feeling lonely, sad, or frightened. How we experience anger differs from person to person. How we express its intensity or how long it lasts. Some people always get angry, while some rarely do. Anger is manifested in both verbal and nonverbal ways. The external expression of anger can be noted in facial expressions, body language, as well as acts of aggression. Psychologists view anger as a normal and natural reaction and state that anger can be either constructive or destructive, meaning that it has both positive and negative outcomes. Anger is basically a signal to you indicating that something in your environment isn't right. It motivates you to take action to correct that wrong thing. Negative outcomes of anger actually pertain to how you manage or control anger. Consistent and extreme anger can result in many detrimental health effects like stress and increase your blood pressure. However, out of control anger can make you violent and destructive, alienating your family, friends, and co-workers, and leading to social isolation. Therefore, controlling your anger is very important to lead a healthy life. Next, there's greed. Greed begins with the inner self. Greed deceives us into believing the more we have, the happier we'll be. It gives us a false sense of power and removes us from the real joy of living. Greed can arise from selfish ambition, pride, and fear. It can lead to a path of destruction and decay. We have to be aware of the grip of greed. It can taunt our very soul, creating a lack of spiritual discernment and direction. Anybody can be greedy, the rich or the poor. Our greediness is not in our wealth, but in our desire to want more and more and more. and the willingness to step on others to get it. This is an ethical problem, a moral issue, a spiritual tumor. If not removed from our lives, it can create many sinful acts and thoughts.
So, what overcomes greed?
Generosity overcomes greed. Our lives can be filled with a yearning for material things that can block our vision. We should be willing to share more of our time, our money, and our spiritual gifts with those in need. And lastly comes sloth.
What is sloth?
Sloth is defined as a reluctance to work or to make an effort. It's laziness, but more to the point, it's comfort. You're lazy because you're comfortable. The sin of sloth is a bit deeper than laziness. Most of us probably do not understand the full difference of what it means to struggle with the sin of sloth versus having moments of laziness. Sloth is the absence of care. You see, sloth is more than just being lazy. Slothfulness is a sinful heart condition. True slothfulness is a two-edged sword. One edge is an abandonment of self. We become so caught up in the fear that we walk away from the things our heart truly desires and bypass opportunities. This is important to fight against because abandonment of our heart's desire impacts the way that we view the universe. The universe has placed in each of us an identity and purpose. The moment we start letting those things go, we move away from the universe and find ourselves in darkness. The other edge of the sword is self-absorption. Once we find ourselves in that dark wilderness, we try to rationalize where we are and why. In this place, we are not walking in thanksgiving for the life the universe gave us, nor are we truly trying to find our way back. The dark side of sloth is a lack of motivation from the inner man. One possible reason for being caught in sloth is fear.
And how do we overcome sloth?
Diligence overcomes the sin of sloth. The virtue of diligence aids us in fulfilling our duties and cultivating a strong work ethic. Sloth draws us into be lazy in all aspects of our life, physical and spiritual. We should develop our talents and gifts rather than keeping them wrapped up in sloth. Nobody likes to admit to committing sins, but we all do. And some of them are far worse and far more damaging than others. If you've already stumbled, there's always reconciliation. And by being aware of these 7 deadly sins can help you to avoid these problems in the first place. And by being aware of these 7 deadly sins and the virtues to overcome them will help you in your spiritual growth. Now that we know better, let's do better. Okay, everybody. Now it's time for movement. I've asked some friends to join us. You guys ready? Okay, just follow me. That's right, come on. Just follow me, everybody. Yeah. You're looking good. You're looking real good. Keep it up now. Yeah. Keep it up. You're looking real good. Yeah. 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 We're almost done. Keep it up. Yeah. Yeah. You're looking real good. So, how'd you do? Great. See you next time.